What's good, everybody? Welcome to the final video in the aging and longevity series that I've done discussing predominantly David Sinclair's work on the various biochemical processes and pathways that cause us to age. And in this video, we're going to discuss what you can actually do about aging. So the first thing, in terms of drugs, the main drug taken from Dr. David Sinclair is metformin, 800 milligrams daily, and NMN, 1 gram daily. So the metformin is a direct activator of AMPK. It also potentially could change the composition of the microbiome, and its more accepted function is to inactivate the protein complex 1 of the electron transport chain. So basically, it makes the electron transport chain more inefficient and causes more free radicals that ultimately result in mitochondrial hormesis. It also inhibits mTOR, increases NAD to activate the sirtuin pathway. A really interesting fact about metformin is that people with type 2 diabetes that take it live longer than normal people, which is absolutely crazy because, type 2 diabetes, you're essentially totally insulin resistant as a result of your own poor diet and lifestyle choices, and they still live longer than people who have not made those poor choices. And then NMN is basically it's an NAD precursor, so it can drastically raise NAD levels in the body. And once again, NAD is the direct activator of the sirtuin pathway that we talked about in the previous video. Resveratrol has also been shown to boost NAD. That's the one that they talk about in red wine. And then I didn't really want to put specifics, but there are actually compounds called senolytics and senomorphics, which directly modulate those senescent zombie cells that we talked about. So xenomorphics limit pro-inflammatory signaling of the senescent cells, and senolytics kill senescent cells directly. Some of the compounds that are going to be kind of explored are dasatinib, acithromycin, and quercetin. Not great data on that at the moment. I kind of just swiped that from Leo in Longevity, who is really good about keeping ahead of the curve on information if you want in terms of longevity research and creating new and exciting kind of experiments for biohackers. So I definitely recommend you to check him out. Another thing, social connections. So people with close social connections live longer. People with meaningful relationships live longer. That's another big reason people tend to believe that women or why women live longer than men, because they tend to be much better at creating social connections and maintaining those social connections. There also could be something to the fact that they have more estrogen, which is cardioprotective and things like that. But being social and will carry you a long ways, and that goes hand in hand with the idea of having some sort of purpose and reason to wake up every day. If, people that don't have a purpose, people that have just recently retired and don't know what to do with their free time, they don't live very long. Some environmental things that you could do are cold showers, saunas, or hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Cold showers are good because they help to stimulate brown fat, which has a high level of uncoupling proteins, which instead of creating ATP down the electron transport chain, it just wastes energy in order to create heat for shivering to keep your temperature maintained properly. This produces less free radicals than the normal electron transport chain, which long term, may have some benefits in allowing you to live longer and decrease the amount of inflammation in your body. It gives you a little dopamine boost. And moving on to saunas. Saunas actually help to create heat shock proteins, which allow for proper protein folding. And they also prevent aggregation of unfolded proteins. Last but not least, we have hyperbaric oxygen therapy here. And this is a relatively new environmental thing that you can do for your lifespan. There's just a whole lot of theory as to why it actually works, but it has been having like great success in like PTSD for veterans and a variety of like mental health disorders. It's shown to increase telomere length, T helper cells, reduce senescent cells, heal faster, all sorts of crazy stuff. But the actual biochemical research behind it is very much in its infancy at the moment. Your diet. Now you want to have a diet low in sugar, saturated fat, cholesterol, protein, iron, and red meat. You also want to be fasting. Now, going into the reasoning behind some of these, so low sugar, obviously you don't want to have swings, high swings and low swings in blood sugar and become insulin resistant. Furthermore, if we're talking about David Sinclair's research, this actually activates the AMPK pathway that we were talking about. In addition, the low saturated fat and cholesterol is there because saturated fat and cholesterol are known to increase your LDL cholesterol. Now, there's a huge debate as to whether LDL cholesterol is actually indicative of heart disease and potential cardiovascular disease, but in my opinion, at the moment, there's very good reason to believe that the amount of LDL over time in your bloodstream, in combination with inflammation or other events such as high blood pressure, can definitely contribute to plaque development. So you want to limit the amount of saturated fat and cholesterol in your diet. Low protein, you would like to have low protein to decrease the amount of mTOR. That in combination with fasting. Because obviously if you're fasting and no food or protein is going into your body, then you are essentially allowing autophagy to take over and clear out the various debris in terms of senescent cells and proteins that have not been folded correctly. You would like to have low iron, as those with normal lower iron have just been shown in various studies to live longer. Ferrous iron leads to accumulation of free radicals and helps to create those senescent cells that we talked about before. Red meat I like to mention in particular because red meat has higher homocysteine levels, which is a biomarker and contributor to atherosclerosis or heart disease. It does so by inducing endoplasmic reticulum stress through disulfide exchange reactions with these ER proteins. So this results in misfolding of newly synthesized thrombodulin protein and von Willebrand factor, which causes inflammation and can lead to apoptosis in vascular cells. Lastly, fasting, it increases AMPK and decreases mTOR. So there's kind of, if you want to take anything away from this dietary section, if you just incorporate intermittent fasting or longer 3 to 5 day fasts, that will have a greater impact than any one dietary change alone. Furthermore, I just say that pescatarian, because fish generally does not have high homocysteine levels that you would find in red meat, and furthermore, fish like salmon have high omega-3s, which have been shown to create a favorable cholesterol or lipid profile to prevent heart disease. Another thing, so body mass. A low body weight, like kind of the lowest body weight you can maintain while having high micronutrient consumption would be ideal. Because you want to have, a good diet without sacrificing all of the, vitamins A, D, E, K, C, B, all that sort of thing, iron, all of those different micronutrients. You want to still be hitting all of those, but also not consuming ridiculous amounts of calories, add to your body mass and potentially make you insulin resistant. Just as important as not being overweight, being underweight can be just as deadly. That's why I mentioned micronutrients, because let's say some people take it to the extreme and they want to be essentially anorexic or bulimic, and that is actually just as, if not more deadly than being overweight. You actually have a higher incidence of cardiovascular events and things like that when you have those kind of eating disorders. So be careful. Everything in moderation, right? Basically, if you have a lower body mass, your heart does not have to have such a difficult time pumping all of the blood around your body. Even if you are heavy with muscle, that can also be taxing on your heart. That's the reason why smaller people live longer, and the reason why women generally live longer than men. Moving on to exercise, it's recommended 15 minutes a day of high intensity exercise. train big muscle groups, and basically just, don't have a sedentary lifestyle. Exercise actually activates AMPK because if you're using up a bunch of glucose, a bunch of ATP, you're going to have high amounts of AMP in your cells, and this is going to activate that AMP kinase we talked about in the previous video. Furthermore, having a good amount of muscle on you, not an excess amount of muscle to where it's taxing to your heart to pump the blood around and get oxygen to them, but enough to help to create greater insulin sensitivity because, muscles are able to store a large amount of glucose, which, then you can have more carbohydrates without risking having a high blood sugar level. Sleep, this is an obvious one. It's very good to have an optimal circadian rhythm. So this means you do want sunlight first thing in the morning to train your brain when it should be waking up and when it should start producing the various hormones, cortisol to wake you up and get your day going so you have energy, and then no light at night, or if you do have to look at screens, put a blue filter on everything. If you need to help kind of reset and find a starting point for your sleep schedule again, it's good to use 3 to 5 milligrams of melatonin, as that is the chemical that is released to make you sleepy and start your sleep schedule. Furthermore, you don't want to eat before bed because you can kind of interrupt your sleep patterns and also your growth hormone release, as well as you're taking blood away from other parts of your body that are not your digestive system that could help to use that extra blood and oxygen and nutrients to recover from the day, particularly and most importantly, your brain.